Hi there. I'm Rowena. My sister married a hospital CEO and was celebrated like a queen. Me? I fell in love with a man who builds engines and got erased from my own family. No seat at the wedding, no place in the will, just silence where love was supposed to be. How did it get this far? Why would the people who raised you plot to erase you completely? Have you ever been left out of something you thought you'd always be part of? Did your family ever make you feel like a stranger in your own story? And hey, what time is it where you are? And where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. I'm really curious. The church in La Jolla shimmered under the afternoon sun like it had something to prove. Cars lined the curb like showroom exhibits, each more polished than the last. Colton shifted beside me, holding a small wrapped box that now looked embarrassingly out of place. "I don't see our names," he murmured, scanning the guest registry on the podium. My name wasn't there. Of course it wasn't. A cousin had slipped me the date and location weeks ago, whispering, "Don't say I told you, seriously." I knew I shouldn't have come, but I did. Because some part of me, foolish or stubborn or both, still hoped Sutton would want her twin sister there on her wedding day. Lavinia spotted me first, her mouth tightening before the rest of her face followed. "This isn't appropriate," she said, stepping toward me with the grace of a woman used to appearing composed in crisis. "You weren't invited for a reason." Thurman emerged from the entryway like he'd been waiting. "You've made your choices, Rowena. Don't make a scene." I held his stare. "I came to say congratulations." Sutton appeared behind them, radiant in her designer gown, pearls on her ears, not a hair out of place. She waved at the guests, smiled for the photographers, and when her eyes landed on me, her whole body hardened. "Please leave," she said. Her voice was soft, like someone trying not to ruin the day, but every syllable cut. "This day isn't about statements." Colton took a small step closer to me. I didn't flinch. We turned to leave. No one stopped us. A groomsman I didn't recognize muttered, "Blue-collar drama," just loud enough. In the truck, I stared straight ahead. Colton didn't speak until we'd passed the city line. "You don't have to keep proving yourself to them." My hands clenched in my lap. "It's not about them. It's about knowing I still exist." Silence wrapped around us like the San Diego fog rolling in. Somewhere a text buzzed, then another. At a red light, I checked my phone. "Lavinia, I hope this stunt wasn't meant to ruin Sutton's big day." Delete. Then a new number. Unknown. "Miss Keene, this is regarding your removal from the estate. We need to talk." The envelope was heavier than I remembered. The corner still curled where I'd once bent it, thinking it was junk mail. But I'd never opened it. Not even once. I sat in my apartment, grease still on my knuckles from the morning shift at the garage, and held the envelope to the light. Inside was my application to Westcliff Institute, sealed, untouched, and 15 years late. I wasn't rejected. I was never even considered. 16 years ago, I spent 2 weeks building that portfolio. I worked through Thanksgiving break, missing Sutton's birthday brunch because I was hunched over sketches, drafting modules, fine-tuning a solar conversion model no one else in my class could grasp. When I handed it to my father, he looked at it the way someone looks at a menu they've already decided to ignore. "I'll handle the submission," he said. "Trust me." I did. I watched him walk into his office with it, watched the drawer open, watched the folder disappear like it had always belonged in the dark. Weeks passed, then months. The rejection never came because the application never left. "Maybe you weren't what they were looking for," he shrugged one night, slicing into roast lamb. No pause, no guilt, and just like that, I started to believe him. While I sat waiting for a call that would never come, Sutton was whisked away to an executive women's training academy. Lavinia called it an investment in refinement. New blouses and pastels, elocution coaching, lessons on fine dining etiquette and making a man feel competent without looking dim. "You'll marry upward," Mother said. "We're investing in your future." Apparently mine wasn't worth much. I started working longer hours at the auto shop downtown. The old guy who ran the place didn't care if I wore motor oil or won science fairs. He just liked that I asked better questions than his interns. At night, I'd sketch in the corner of the garage while the air compressor hissed in the background. The smell of rubber and rust became more comforting than anything I'd known at home. One evening, I overheard them in the hallway. "Rowena will find something, eventually," Lavinia sighed. "Sutton's already destined for greatness," Thurman replied. I didn't cry. I just walked to the garage, shut the door, and turned the wrench until my hands blistered. Back in the present, I set the envelope down on the workbench and pulled up my laptop. I found the Westcliff admissions email, still active. My finger hovered over the compose button. I don't need to be accepted. I just need them to know I was never even allowed to try. I wasn't looking for anything that day, just clearing out old boxes, thinning the clutter, trying to make room for new blueprints and spare parts. But when my hand brushed the yearbook sleeve and something folded crackled inside, I knew. Her handwriting stopped me cold. Slanted letters, a familiar loop in the R, the date in the corner, senior year. I unfolded it. A single page, no salutation. "You always outshine me. Maybe just this once. Let me have the win." The memory hit like a hammer. 16 years ago, the regional science fair, I had built a prototype of a water-purifying engine that ran on solar heat. Sutton had a pastel trifold on gender roles in fairy tales. The judges didn't even pause at hers. That night, she found me in our room, crying under the desk lamp. She sat on the bed and handed me this letter. She didn't say it aloud. She didn't have to. I dropped out the next day, told the teachers I was sick. I watched her accept my trophy in front of a gymnasium packed with applause. She smiled like she had earned it. Maybe she believed she had. Father called her the true keen legacy that night at dinner. I nodded, chewed silently, and stared at the oil stains spreading on my jeans. Back in the present, I held the letter between two fingers like it might stain me again. Then I folded it, slowly, but didn't put it away. She hadn't been protecting me. She had been practicing. Another memory surfaced. I was 15. My name disappeared from the Advanced Design Club roster without explanation. When I asked the teacher, she looked uncomfortable and said, "There were concerns about your attitude." I heard Lavinia on the phone later whispering, "It's that competition mindset. She doesn't know when to stop." And Sutton? Sutton told Mom I was getting aggressive with the boys in class, that I didn't know how to stay in her lane. She smiled at me the next morning and said, "Maybe focus on something quieter. Art, maybe." I started to connect the dots that stretched over years. Every time a door closed, Sutton was standing just to the side, pretending not to hold the key. Extracurriculars, faculty relationships, the slow erosion of how teachers looked at me, like I was unsteady, like they were warned. She hadn't just asked me to step aside, she'd orchestrated it. That night, Colton came home to find me at the kitchen table, the letter spread out like evidence. My fingers hovered above the page. "Is that from her?" I nodded. She didn't just report me to Mom. She was building a case against me before I even knew I was on trial. And maybe that trial isn't over yet. The text came mid-morning. "Dinner at 7. Just us. Let's talk as a family." That's how she worded it. Lavinia, polite and vague, like we hadn't been dancing around years of buried glass. Colton raised an eyebrow when I told him, "This doesn't sound like peace. This sounds like stagecraft." He wasn't wrong, but I went anyway. The house smelled like rosemary and secrets. The dining table gleamed, set with wine glasses and napkins folded into little cranes. Lavinia wore her pearls. Thurman was already seated at the head, stiff as a portrait. Sutton hovered near the buffet like she wanted to melt into the wallpaper. No one hugged me. No one asked how I was. "We've all been worried," Thurman began like it was a sermon. "You've made some unconventional choices." "And we understand," Lavinia added, smiling with her teeth. "But what if this life you're living isn't sustainable?" Sutton didn't speak. Her silence was its own kind of permission. Then a voice crackled through a tablet propped up at the end of the table. A pastor they used to invite to holiday brunches. "Rowena," he said gently, "would you consider returning to the path you were raised for?" That's when I realized. This wasn't dinner. It was a correctional session disguised in linen and lemon chicken. Plates were cleared. Dessert was skipped. Instead, Lavinia handed me a manila envelope. Inside was a resume, my name, a fake degree in communications, a job offer, front desk assistant at a women's health clinic run by one of Sutton's charity friends. "It's a clean slate," she said. "We even spoke with someone. You can start Monday." I closed the folder, slowly, carefully. "This isn't reconciliation. This is a soft deletion." Thurman scowled. "We're trying to help." Sutton finally looked up. Her voice barely carried. "Maybe we should have asked her what she wanted." "Too late for that," I said. My chair scraped against the floor. I stood. Lavinia's voice followed me to the hallway. "You're acting like we're enemies." I didn't turn around. "You don't erase the people you love." I opened the door and stepped into the night air. "Next time you try to rewrite me, make sure I'm not holding the pen." I logged into the old bank account out of instinct, not necessity. The kind of thing you do when you can't sleep and your mind starts chasing ghosts. I hadn't touched it in years, but the numbers didn't lie. $12,480, withdrawn in 4 separate transfers, all during my senior year, each marked with the same line: Event Fund, Family Celebration. I closed the browser. The silence in my apartment stretched like smoke. I didn't need to guess where it went. I already knew. Back in 2014, there was a party Sutton didn't stop talking about. Not to me, of course, I wasn't invited, but friends whispered. Photos floated online, champagne flutes, custom monograms, even a violinist flown in from Portland. What stood out wasn't the extravagance, it was the speech. My father, in front of 100 guests, called Sutton the perfect embodiment of the Keene legacy. He raised a glass and toasted the future. That toast, it had my name stamped on the receipt. A few days later, I made an appointment with our family's former estate lawyer. I gave him my name, sat down, and asked one question. Was I ever on the trust? He hesitated. His mouth opened, closed, then finally said, "You were." "Am I still?" He sighed. "You were removed in 2017. For what reason?" He checked his file. "It just says, lack of alignment with family values." I thanked him. My hands didn't shake. Not until I got in the car and whispered to myself, "They already buried me. I'm just showing up to the funeral." That night, I picked up the phone. Lavinia answered. "Rowena?" I didn't give her time to fake warmth. "If you try to use my name for anything again, I will make you wish you hadn't." There was silence, then carefully measured. "There's no need for threats." "That wasn't a threat," I said. "That was a line." I hung up. The next morning, a courier knocked at my door. He handed me a padded envelope. I signed without asking. Inside was a notice from a title company. My name had been attached to a property deed. A beach house I'd never seen. Purchased with money that wasn't mine. Signed, allegedly, by me. They didn't just ignore my warning. They weaponized my silence. The envelope was heavy. Not in weight, in intention. Thick cardstock, certified mail, return address from a title company I didn't recognize. I opened it at the kitchen counter with the same numb efficiency I used to sort bills, until I saw my name. Not just once, dozens of times, stamped across legal pages tied to a property I had never seen, let alone signed for. They used me, again. The attorney's office smelled like coffee and laminate flooring. The man behind the desk adjusted his glasses as he read through the documents. "This isn't just a deed," he said. "This property is collateral for a private business loan, $2 million, and you're listed as co-owner, full liability." My signature stared back at me. Perfect, except I'd never written it. He looked at me, curious. "Do you want to press fraud?" I didn't answer. I just stood up and walked out. By the time I hit the coast, the sun was low and smeared across the sky like a wound that wouldn't close. I parked near Ocean Beach Pier and sat on the hood of my truck. My hands trembled. They'd crossed a line. One they couldn't walk back from. I didn't cry, not like before. This wasn't grief, this was something harder, sharper. A knock came at 9:17 p.m. I opened the door to find Sutton standing there, wearing a hoodie and tired eyes. She looked like someone who had been running, but not fast enough. "I'm staying at a hotel," she said. "I can't be in that house right now." I didn't say anything. I let her in. "I didn't know about the deed," she said, "but I know what else they've done, and I'm done covering for it." She sat on the couch like a guest in someone else's life. "They let me win, Ro. They handed me trophies you should have earned. And I took them. I kept taking them, because I was scared if I didn't, I'd disappear too. She pulled something from her bag, a thumb drive. This has emails from Dad, from Mom. They talk about you like you're a liability. I took it from her, stared at the weight of years packed into plastic and silicone. Why now? I asked. She looked up. Because I'm done choosing comfort over truth, and because no one else is going to tell you they're sorry. I didn't respond. I just held the drive in my palm, the metal cool against my skin. You sure you're ready to burn this down? She asked. I didn't blink. I'm done playing nice. Let it burn. The file was labeled Mother's Archive. I clicked before I could hesitate. Inside were dozens of scans, pages from a diary I'd never seen, all in Lavinia's sharp cursive. The ink was neat, the sentences surgical. Rowena is reactive, Sutton is moldable. One is a liability, the other, an asset. My breath caught. I scrolled. She challenges authority, disrupts structure. We must redirect praise away from her when possible. Shift optics. It's better for Sutton's long-term viability. I thought I'd be angry. I wasn't. Not at first. I was stunned. Stunned by how clinical it all felt. Like I'd been dissected while still breathing. 14 years ago. I was 16, showing up to dinner in a red button-down and jeans. Lavinia raised an eyebrow and said, "You're not wearing that to the table, are you? It's aggressive." That same night, she wrote, "She dresses to provoke. It needs softening." Back in the present, I printed the pages, laid them across the kitchen table like puzzle pieces of myself. The room was silent except for the hum of the fridge. A single fruit fly circled above the lamp, and I stared at it like it knew more than I did. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "This is Dean Culver," the voice said. "From UCSD. I used to work with your father." I said nothing. "I'm calling because I thought you should know. The ethics complaint. The one that finally brought everything down. It came from your sister. She submitted the emails, the research file, all of it." He paused. "Did she tell you?" "She gave me a drive," I said. "Didn't say what was on it." "I've been in that house," he said. "You're the only one who ever scared him." When the call ended, I sat with that, let it soak into the fibers of the room. Sutton, the same person who had helped erase me, was now the one pulling back the curtain. Redemption or self-preservation? I wasn't sure, but either way, I had leverage. Colton walked in, wiping his hands with a rag. He froze at the sight of all the pages scattered across the table. "Is this what I think it is?" I handed him a page I'd highlighted. It read, "They didn't raise daughters, they crafted legacies." He read it twice, then looked at me. "What now?" I didn't blink. "Now I have their blueprint. I can burn the house down or rebuild from the ashes. But tomorrow, they'll know I read it all." The attorney didn't look me in the eye when he confirmed it. "Yes," he said quietly. "Your grandfather's original will named you as a 40% beneficiary." "And now?" He cleared his throat. "It was rewritten in 2020. You were replaced. There's no official reason on the record, but I was told by Lavinia directly." I didn't cry. I just nodded, stood, and walked out into the San Diego heat. Back at home, I found the old photo. Me at 10 years old, standing in the garage next to Grandpa. We were both holding the same wrench, his giant hand covering mine like scaffolding. That day, he'd looked at me like I wasn't just a girl holding a tool, but a legacy waiting to be built. "He saw me," I whispered, before anyone else even looked. Colton was in the garage when it happened. He was sorting through a box labeled Grandpa Estate when he found it. A sealed envelope marked in thick black ink, in case of disputes. "Row," he said, holding it out like it might burn his hands. "You might want to see this." Inside was a notarized printout, the original will, a scanned PDF attached with Grandpa's signature, time-stamped, legally validated. To Rowena, for her grit, her mind, and her refusal to bend. That night, I walked into a different law office, a neutral one, downtown, with no ties to my family. I didn't file suit. I didn't threaten anyone. I submitted the document to the family's digital estate archive and quietly requested it be made visible to all listed members. Quiet, permanent, undeniable. I thought that would be the end of it. Lavinia called the next morning. She didn't sound angry. She sounded cornered. You don't know what kind of doors you've just slammed. I didn't slam them, I said. I just walked out and locked them behind me. We're still family, Rowena. No, I said. You crafted a bloodline. I reclaimed my own. The line went dead. Back at the house, Colton was cooking dinner, stirring something that smelled like roasted garlic and butter. He looked up when I walked in. Did you finally put it to rest? Not yet, I said, but I buried the lie. I walked to the back room and opened the old wooden box I labeled Legacy. Inside went the original will, sealed in a new envelope placed beside Grandpa's photo. Theirs was edited. Mine is original. The box at my doorstep was plain. No return address, no markings. Inside was a sketch, pencil on aged paper, the lines slightly smudged like it had been handled too many times. It was the car we dreamed of building when we were 12. Sutton had drawn the frame. I had drawn the engine, one side incomplete. Tucked into the edge of the paper was a note. We both deserved to be seen. I'm sorry I looked away first. I stood in the garage holding it, the morning light catching the edges. For a second, I saw us again. Two girls on the cold garage floor, arguing over tire sizes and taillights. Before we knew, the world had already decided which one of us mattered more. 16 years ago. Grandpa handed me my first wrench. You're not just a fixer, he said. You're a maker. Remember that when they try to tell you otherwise. That night came back in full color. The scent of oil and leather gloves. The sound of jazz crackling from an old radio. The way he didn't flinch when I asked to tighten the bolts myself. My phone buzzed. Voicemail. Lavinia's voice. We may never agree, but we still carry your name. That must mean something. Then a letter. Thurman's handwriting. Perfect, precise, as always. I never knew how to love what I couldn't control. I didn't finish reading it. I didn't need to. Later that evening, I placed both messages on the fireplace mantle. I didn't rage. I didn't hesitate. I burned them slowly, one at a time, watching the paper curl and crackle. Not out of revenge, but because I didn't want them framed in my life anymore. Colton sat beside me, handed me a mug of tea. He didn't ask what I burned, just held the silence steady so I could breathe inside it. The next morning, I finished installing the EV conversion on a community college project car. When the students turned the key and the engine hummed to life, one of them grinned wide. We want to be like you. I wiped my hands on my jeans. Be better, I said, and never let them tell you who you're not. That night, I pinned Sutton's sketch above my workbench. The drawing was unfinished, so I added the engine, quiet forgiveness in ink. Sometimes, what hurts the most isn't being forgotten. It's realizing you were erased on purpose. But here's what I've learned. You don't need a family tree to grow roots. You build your name, your worth, with what you survive and who you choose to become when no one is watching. If you've ever been pushed to the side, told to shrink yourself to make others more comfortable, this story is for you. Your voice matters. Your truth matters. And you are not alone. Now I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever walked away from something that tried to define you? Or maybe you're still figuring out how to do that. Let me know in the comments. Just type 1 if this story touched your heart, or tell me where you're watching from. If it didn't resonate with you, that's okay too. I'd love to hear why, and how your story is different. And if you want to hear more stories that speak to your soul, hit that subscribe button and join this growing community. We're not here to be perfect, we're here to be real.